Welcome back to Lost in Roshar, the ultimate journey through the Stormlight archive. I'm Christian.
And I'm Jimmy. Today we are diving into the very first set of interludes right after part 1 of The Way of Kings. And as always, full spoilers are ahead for all of the Stormlight archive. So if you haven't read all 4 books, we'll see you later. But for all of you who have taken the journey, welcome to the Thunderdome. I don't know. I was going to say Thunderdome. I was going to say a pit. I didn't know what to say. Yeah, we're diving into these interludes, and they are a collection of 3. And it was a joy reading these over again. But Christian, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, man. It was really fun reading the interludes. And I don't know if I'm getting too comfortable, but I'm leaving my chapter readings closer and closer to the recording time. I read these a few hours ago, and I was desperately had like 25 Chrome tabs open, taking notes, getting the red string on my wall, touching all the characters and connections. And I remember reading these and I remember really loving the Purelake chapter and wanting to see this guy, Ishikk, in the book. And then you literally never see him again. So that's kind of sad.
He's kind of a one and done, huh?
Yeah, it's just like he did what he came to do and he's gone. How are you, man? How are things?
I'm good. I'm dealing with a little bit of a back tweak from jiu-jitsu, but overall, it's not too bad. Unfortunately, sitting is the worst position I can be in, which turns out I sit a lot in life. So that's been a little bit rough. But I just got out of seeing Oppenheimer today. I thought it was a fantastic movie for all those who are curious. But things are good, man. Things are really good. And I enjoyed these chapters this week, which is always great. And I'm excited to get into part 2 of The Way of Kings here soon.
Yeah, I'm really keen. Finally getting Dalina and the what's their last? The Colon people, the Colon fam. Keen to meet all of them again. And man, I'm desperate to see Oppenheimer, but getting a seat here is so tough. And
it's absurd here too.
Give me 3 hours of Christopher Nolan and I'm happy. I don't really know the story of Oppenheimer that well, to be honest. I don't know if it's because I'm Australian or I'm just uninformed, but it's something I'm keen to learn about.
I think it's mostly like Americans know about Oppenheimer, but not even every American knows about Oppenheimer. My wife, who's very, I would say, well educated and well spoken, and she's very successful, much higher education than I am. But she actually didn't know much about Oppenheimer at all, and she came out of it and was like, "I am very interested now." And I'm like, "That's the point." Like, now the kind of the rabbit hole opens up. I was a big fan of the Manhattan Project, which was a television show. It only had 2 seasons and got canceled, and it was talking about Los Alamos and kind of like it was like a drama around the town, which is really interesting, where they built the bomb. But yeah, Oppenheimer was fantastic. I saw it in IMAX, and it always just makes me think that I know we want that Stormlight TV show, but man, those Mistborn movies could be cool, man. You know, just seeing some in IMAX and the theater experience and the shaking of the seats and, you know, get the lights dimming, getting your popcorn. I'd like to see a big budget fantasy movie that isn't like King Arthur retold again. Like, I would like to see the original IP up on the screen.
Oh, I would love it. And I like when IMAX movies, they go from like the 16:9 and then the black bars expand. And I can see that when Kelsey's with Vin, it's like, all right, this is how to be a Mistborn. and then it opens up to IMAX and they just start flying through Luthadel. Oh, that would be so good.
Chris Pratt is playing Kelsier and
Henry Cavill as Vin. I mean, it would be so good.
I'm there for it. I'm paying my $14.95 and checking it out matinee.
I would like to see the whole, you know, when you think back to Game of Thrones, you're like, oh yeah, Kit Harington, Emilia Clarke, Sophie Turner, Maisie Williams, all these people that you never heard of. I'd love to see the cosmere usher in like a bunch of unknowns.
Certainly.
And a bunch of new actors and new actresses.
Yeah, and I agree.
I think the casting debates will be so toxic and heated whenever they start putting this together, especially for Mistborn. It's like I would say Mistborn's way more popular than Stormlight, and it's a lot of people's foray back into fantasy. I think Stormlight gets more chat and more deeper discussion, but I feel like everyone's read Mistborn in our circle, right?
Yeah, and just my anecdotal evidence, I was at a work meeting when they flew me out to be at the head office, and just organically, without me, I don't say anything in these meetings, and people started talking about Mistborn. And there was one guy's like, "Oh, have you read Stormlight?" And they're like, "No, not yet. I just really like Mistborn. I read it like 2 or 3 times." And I'm like, wow, like it's just so opposite of me. I prefer Stormlight, but I do think that Stormlight, and also just Mistborn's been around longer as well, and it's finished. So a lot of people like to jump into that, and it's a trilogy instead of a 35, 40 year, 10 book epic kind of deal. So
yeah, it's the entry, it's the gateway into this world, and a lot of people who have read Mistborn have no idea it's part of a greater universe.
That's true.
I feel like I don't know if, because it's weird, because I'm so keen to see the cosmere become this huge franchise and this huge connected universe, but it's almost like ever since the MCU, everyone's doing it. And I wonder if people are going to be tired of like, can't I just get something that I can sit down and understand, and I don't have to like watch a million things?
Yeah.
Yeah,
there's definitely a fatigue with that. But things come in cycles, right? And I think it's probably going to be a good amount of time before we see maybe like a Stormlight adaptation. At least that's my gut feeling. I think, we could be looking at 10 years even, maybe, possibly.
Yeah. And I could see it being like something that we don't even know yet. Yeah. That's so articulate of me to say, but it's like, maybe it's not even a movie or a show. Maybe it's like a VR journey or some crazy tech that we're not even ready for, some AI. I'm just gonna drop all the hot words,
bro. Watching these alien hearings, and they're crazy. But I was just thinking, like, man, are we about to get Roshar? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's sort of even when I recognized it, I was like, oh no,
are we the Parshendi?
Oh yeah, and we are the Parshendi.
Oh my god. Are we about to get Roshar? What a specific reference.
It's a verb.
Yeah. Oh, God. I never thought of it that way.
I did.
Love that bit of existential terror for my morning. Brilliant.
Yeah, that was
Thanks, Jimmy.
When I thought of it, I was like, well, that's the quick update section. Of the
that's
podcast.
it. Okay. New shards arriving. Damn it. but like, I was looking into that too, and it's just like, man, this is like, it's weird, because then my tinfoil novel brain starts to apply to real life, and I'm like, am I going mad? Do I need to stop? Like, what is real? Who am I?
Well, thankfully, I don't think we have too much to worry about right now in the way of this. But we do have something to worry about, Christian, and that is our weekly poll that you host over there on your YouTube channel, Lost in Discovery. So we've been on this little bit of a road trip kick. We've filled out the car, and now we are picking the final destination of this road trip. So let's talk about the poll.
Yeah, so we started at the Shattered Plains with, I guess we're in the Civic, right? We've decided. The Civic. Us in the front, either Jimmy or I, depending on your scenario, or you, the listener. You're up front, you're chilling, you're driving. Adolin, Yasna, Sil, next to you, having a great chat. Where are we going? We had some options. The Purelake, the Reshi Isles, Shinovar, or Amia. And it was a winner by a mile. The Purelake with 52% of the votes. Although the comments tell a different story. The comments were heated this week. Everyone was very passionate about where we were going, and there was a lot of Shinovar hate, which was really funny to read. Someone was like, if you want to go to Shinovar, just go outside and touch grass. And they're not wrong. I mean, the best part about Shinovar would be seeing the characters react to Shinovar, I suppose, and finding out the secrets of Roshar, but like just looking around, it wouldn't be as exciting. Who did you vote for?
I voted for the Purelake, obviously. I just think it's one of the coolest things. I do think the Reshi Isles are like pretty cool. I mean, all these places are really cool, but I did think it was funny that the top comment is, to everyone that said a Shinovar, you realize that you picked the least exotic and most Earth-like place on Roshar, right? Which isn't wrong, technically.
No, it's not wrong. But yeah, like I said, I think the reason is because of like, we want to go to book 5. Everyone just wants book 5, and book 5 is Shinovar, and I want to see more about it too. And look, yes, on the surface it does look like Earth, but they're like talking to stones. I mean, some people are doing that on Earth, but I'm not really curious to know why. In Roshar, I am. So I see the merit, but you know what I'm mad about is Amir with 5%, maybe our lowest ranked place ever. Okay, look, we'd all die, but we'd learn some things, you know? So, the Kremlings.
Yeah, can you give a little bit of a sales pitch for this? Because honestly, this is the location I know least about of the 4.
Yeah, it's there's a lot going there. So there's 2 types of Amiens. One is like the Kremling people, like the hive mind. So that's where I'm obsessed. Christian Kremling, you know what I'm all about. And there's like I don't know if you remember from the interludes later, Axes the Collector. He's Amien too, and he had like blue skin. He can like change the patterns on his skin and stuff.
I don't remember this.
Oh yeah, he's this guy. He can like change his skin and patterns and tattoos, and he's like, he shows up randomly in a bunch of interludes. Well, by a bunch I mean 2, I think. But Amir, we've had a few scenes. I should really know this, but I'm pretty sure. Yeah, they do. They go there in Dawnshard. That's where they go. And there's also a scene of a soulcaster lady heading towards Amir, and she's been soulcasting too much, and she like soulcasts her body away. We learned that that's like a thing in Roshar. If you do it too much, you kind of dissipate. And that's who's in the if you look at the poll, that's who's in the picture. She's kind of like fading away because there's no really great art of Amir. But so, I just thought Kremlings, take me there. I'm in.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, someone said the Reshi Isles is, very exotic and has crabs, which is pretty cool. Where the Purelake is very exotic, but does not have crabs. And I love
crabs
crab
or
cakes.
No crabs. I mean, well, they're talking about like the Reshi Isles are literally giant freaking beings that move and you like live on them. So that's really cool. We get a taste of it. I'm just trying to remember. I think it's a Risen interlude. And you actually, yeah, it's where she gets like strung off the side of the island that starts moving. So they're basically like the Purelake, but less chill. It's like if you want to go to Disneyland or just go to the beach, I suppose.
Yeah.
My 2 comparisons.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah. So you're just like crab cakes. That's why you want to go. It's all about food with you, Jimmy.
Yeah, I'm a foodie. There ain't no doubt about it, man.
Are you a seafood guy?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so the Purelake, mate, magical fish.
Yeah, and it's just the most interesting for me out of the bunch, especially we're here in the interludes, and it just seems like a great destination because we really have no idea what's going on up here.
Oh, dude, I'm actually like, despite all my disagreements with the poll, I'm glad people voted for the Purelake because it makes sense to talk about this episode. We're going to be talking about it anyway. And look, I think we just sort of get someone to set up a ramp. We take the Civic up and just gloriously fly into the Purelake and call it a day.
And just see what happens.
Where do we end up? What's going on?
Yeah, is there really a bottom there? Is it really as shallow as it's seen? Who knows? Who knows, folks?
Yeah. And I think that look, that brings to an end the road trip, the Rosharian road trip. We had a good time. We got there unscathed.
What a great theme we had going there. I mean, we'll have some more polls each week.
Yeah, we'll have to think of something new. We've struck gold once. We can do it again.
I hope so.
But let's do it, man. Let's go to the Purelake. I'm ready.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, Interlude 1 is Ishikk. Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. So we go here, we meet Ishikk, and we hear about New Ralek, which is very interesting. We hear about Purelakers and then their take on foreigners who visit the Purelake. And we go all the way through this and we get this little introduction to this people, which, is some really great world building as well. And then we meet 3 mysterious people who seem to be looking for Hoid. And that might sound fairly simple, but as everyone knows, when you read something in Stormlight, there's generally some other stuff going on here. So, Christian, what did you make of this interlude?
Yeah, that's exactly what you just said was what was playing in my brain before I reread this. I'm like, okay, we'll go to the Purelake. There's that god thing that's going on, and we'll meet 3 guys, and they're from another place looking for Hoid. The end. But when I reread it now, there's actually a lot more to pick apart than I anticipated. And what is cool is as we look at the chapter art, you actually see Hoid on either side of Ishikk's name. Like that's not a herald, that's Hoid's one. So that's kind of cool.
That is
that
cool.
He has his own one too. I forgot they actually say Hoid in
they
this.
Straight up say it.
Yeah, they straight up say. I did not, because I highlighted as I was reading. Oh, that description fits Hoid when they say white hair and stuff, and then I felt stupid because then it's just like, yeah, his name's Hoid. But what really I've been thinking about this morning is like, okay, so he's doing these interludes. They're a big thing for this series. Why is this the first one? You know, why? I'm thinking about that a lot with the Way of Kings, is placement of chapters. Why Ishikk first? Why the Purelake? And I've got a few ideas. I want it to be a little bit more exciting, but maybe with some discussion we'll get there. Did you just out of curiosity, did you look up who those three people were?
I did not, because I figured we would get into it here on the show.
Yeah.
But my favorite part of this chapter is the ending. Whenever it says, "Well, you've got the full part right," Ishikk said with a chuckle, turning his own direction, heading off to check his traps, which is talking about the Fool's Quest. This is, which is the person talking about this was Grump. And if I'm not mistaken, Wit is a bit of a jester in Stormlight, right?
Yeah. What?
Fool jester.
Yeah.
It's a good tie-in for Wit. I love it.
Oh, 100%. What made me curious about this was like, is Ishikk calling these three guys fools for their, stupid foreigner quest? Or is he like getting paid off by Hoid and he's like, yes.
That's
Fool.
what I took it as. Yes.
You reckon?
Yeah, you got that's what I felt. Well, you've got the full part right with a chuckle. And that makes me feel like Ishikk definitely knows what's good. That's way too cheeky and on the nose.
You reckon? Because he also thinks like that he had been looking for this character or whatever. Doesn't he think that to himself? Like, I was looking. Yeah.
He does.
It would be cool if it was getting paid off, though. I kind of wanted to be like that, but maybe not.
I would maybe like to see that interaction. So maybe he does think they're just fools, but I don't know. Fools in quotes. I felt like it was definitely referencing Wit, but you're right that I don't think it's super consistent with his internal dialogue with himself.
Yeah.
So that does bring up a problem, I think.
Yeah. What I was trying to establish in this chapter is what we've been seeing as we read The Way of Kings is that all these different cultures have a different religion, which is kind of warping the true history of Roshar in its own way. And Ishikk and these Purelake people, they worship one god, but they can't speak his name. They have to speak his like spiteful younger brother's name to the people, which is like a great little comedic thing going on in this chapter. But I was like, okay, who is this appropriating in our world? Is this appropriating a herald, or is this appropriating a shard thing? Is this based in a reality that we can understand? And I thought, is this like the shift from worshipping honor to odium? And like outside we'll say we worship odium, but inside we worship honor or something. And they've got these new names for them. That's where I was going with it.
I really like that. And I was not there like quite right where you are, but the quote, "The Purelake was life itself. Once this land had been claimed by a king, Salatels, the nation had been called one of the epoch kingdoms." And I was going to ask you, who was this king? Is there a chance it might have been a herald? Like, I don't know. I can't remember in the timeline where the epoch kingdoms lay.
The epoch kingdoms are like, whenever we go into those those visions with Dalinar, it's like the time when the Radiants are just, flying around as superheroes and we're in the thick of things with the desolations and stuff. And what's really cool is like, it's kind of because Dalinar has been to the Purelake at some point in his like army career. And in Words of Radiance, he has a vision with the Radiants fighting, and there's this big onyx or obsidian fortress, and he's like, "Oh, I think I'm in the Purelake. Like, I should be in the Purelake, judging by like looking around." So clearly, like, there was a much more established society there at one point, and it's cool because like that can only be said as a throwaway line with this interlude.
Yeah, that's so true.
He can't like, what is the Purelake? Like you'd have to explain it right there and then. But now we've like, oh yeah, Ishikk. And I mean, I've been reading so much online. I'm trying to remember if that was mentioned in this chapter, that there used to be a fortress there. I don't think it was.
Not that I could tell. The only thing that kind of for me that hinted at there being like a past to this place was that line that I read about it having a king and it being called Celatales, one of the Epoch kingdoms. So I thought that was interesting. I'm just wondering who the king was and if that king was of any significance outside of just, being a king.
Yeah, I didn't look up him directly. But it's interesting to learn about the different kingdoms of Roshar and how they've kind of slightly changed over time or been split up in our current day. I've just looked it up now in the Copper Mine. It says Celatales was one of the silver kingdoms on Roshar. It was a monarchy that claimed the Purelake, Marabethia, Babathanum, Yule, and tiny portions of Tu, Baila, and Rira as part of its territory. And they just talk about there was an Oathgate there. They wrote in Dawn Chant the script of the Silver Kingdoms, though the people spoke an ancient form of the Silay language. There's not much information on it. It's just like the old kingdom that used to inhabit the land.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a lot of words there. There's not a lot to dig into at this point, I don't think. But one could say with all these details, you could say that it would be easy to be lost in Roshar.
Ooh, that's a little preview we'll send out.
Should I just leave the call?
I think just end it there. I'll make it a YouTube short and we'll call it a day.
We'll call it a day. We'll pack it in, guys. It's over.
Pack it in, mate. Anywhere that we can sneak in the tagline "Lost in Roshar," I'll take it.
Yes, absolutely.
I want to ask you, Jimmy. I know you're a seafood guy, but what are you thinking about these fish that can like give you visions of the future and cure your
I literally just circled it and was just like, what? Like this maybe even a better question is like, we're coming back here, right? Like this place is going to be more significant in the future, you think?
1000%. Yeah,
it has to be with these fish. And then just even like what you said, like the theology up here is very fascinating and could be hinting at maybe how we get along after Odium possibly wins in book 5.
Yeah. And you just don't spend a whole chapter in a random place that you rarely see again if it's not going to be important. You just don't do that. Not. Yeah, you'd hope not. If this was the only Purelake chapter by book 10, I'd be quite confused, even though I enjoy it. But
we just have so much to do in the back half of Stormlight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, this is one of the things me and you've talked about a lot of times offline is just Roshar's so big, but we've seen just very few glimpses of places, and that's why book 5 is really exciting because we're going to like actually go to Shinovar and everything, which is cool. But the Purelake, that's another place. I mean, we could spend half a book here maybe, which would be great.
Yeah. Not only will the back 5 books focus on different characters. I think it's going to be a 10-year in-world gap too, so everyone will be a bit older. But I hope it's a whole different section of Roshar for whatever reason. I hope half of the map gets destroyed or something or uninhabited, so we can chill in these other places because they're severely underused. But I'm okay with it as long as they eventually show up. Whenever you look at a map of, A Song of Ice and Fire, Westeros is just like one tiny continent next to Essos and Sotheros, and they're barely touched on. So I think he's just setting it up. So they're there, they're ready to be used. Yeah. But one of the great things whenever I get researching these chapters and getting lost on the Copper Mine, there are these things called Words of Brandon. The people who run the Copper Mine are next level. And they go through every signing, every YouTube live stream, any time Brandon Sanderson has spoken.
This is so Snake Martin. This is what people have done with George R. R. Martin as well. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And any fact that's listed on the Copper Mine, has a little annotation and you can click on it. And, I was just going crazy with the Purelake stuff. And we are not the first people to notice these fish. Somebody asked the man himself in 2013. What a legend.
Wow.
So they asked, are the magic fish of the Purelake the result of symbiotic bonds with Spren? And the Sandman said, yes, they are. Many creatures on Roshar have such interactions with Spren. So the other things he's talking about are like the Rishadium, like the super duper horses. They have that whole thing. But anyway, more excitingly, these fish are like magic because of their relationship with Spren or some kind. So yeah, like what's that about? It kind of reminds me of I mean, I haven't read the books that these come from, but aviars are a thing in the cosmere, which are birds that are basically magic or like little Spren companions. We see them in Stormlight. Mraize has one. But yeah, I'm just trying to pull up what actually was the power of this fish that he was talking about, that he was giving his oh, here we go. A cold grill was a very lucky fish, cured aching joints for a good month after you ate it, and sometimes let you see when friends were going to visit by, letting you read the shapes of the clouds. So it's like a double use, because my mind was like, oh, that's medicinal, and then it's like goes straight into like tripping, unless you're actually seeing the future. I don't know. So it would be cool to like see how far this goes and see. He's probably got a whole fish magic system that we're totally unaware of.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and you see Ishikk say to them, to the three, he says, now perhaps I could find you a fish that could locate him, and rubbed his stubbly chin. I'll bet a stumpy court could do it. Might take a while for the fine one, though. And the three of them looked at him. There may be something to these fish, you know.
I laugh so hard because I'm like, that's what I'm thinking. He's like, well, there actually might be something. Because these guys are obviously very aware of the cosmere and magic. It's like, man, there might be something here.
Yeah, and still they think it's just superstition, probably because they're looking down on these people, right? But there's a lot going on with the fish. There's a lot going on with these visitors. There could be a lot going on with Ishikk as well. Like there's a potential that could that he could play a role later, possibly reappear. But there's also a Thaspic that's here. And Ishikk sees him and says, the text says, he nodded to Thaspic, a dark-skinned man who passed him pulling a small raft. It was stacked with a few piles of cloths. He probably taken them out for washing. And they kind of have this back and forth about how's the fishing? It's good. It's bad. Do we think that this person is anything like, is this a herald that's just chilling at the Purelake maybe?
Oh man, this is the best part of the podcast, because that part I did not even pay any. I was like, okay, you know, he's just his mate out in the Purelake chilling. But I guess I should assume that any person passing by could be a herald. I'm not paying close.
I just always think.
No, but it could be. Like, why not? Why not? Because I'm still searching for this key reason. Why is this the first interlude? I mean, it may be as simple as, hey, Roshar's really important. Hoid's in this book for like longtime fans. This is also, there's clues if you're a really big Sando fan about who these people are from other planets. But maybe this dude's a herald, you know. I'm just seeing Thaspic. I don't know, dude. Did you get anything else to suggest that we should be sus?
No, and that's the thing. I did feel like this one was, you know, I lost a shirt while washing. He replied, his voice pleasant. That's the way of things. Are my foreigners here? And this stranger says, sure are, over at Mabe's place. And they just kind of go back and forth. Tide, send it. Like, there's not a lot there.
No, I mean, what shirt? Is there a herald known for losing their washing? The herald of laundry. I don't know.
But, you know, maybe a herald's up there, you know, looking at the water, doing some science. I don't know.
Man, at some point we're gonna like look back and realize we totally missed a herald. But yeah, we're gonna try and catch them all Pokemon style. We're gonna try. A fun fact about this chapter, which I love. So later on, there's like mentions of this plague on Roshar. I don't remember. I think it's in Oathbringer or Rhythm of War, because Liren, Kaladin's dad, has been treating people. And it's like, oh, yes, the plague that broke out in the Purelake. And what it is, it's the common cold, which was brought over by these Worldhoppers. Oh. And it's like spread through Roshar, which is just like, how good is that?
That is great.
I love that, right? Again, also confirmed by Sanderson. Don't know if it's these three guys, but the fact that, you know, this kind of lets you know that that's the reason why. You can think back to this chapter and be like, well, they brought over their own diseases from other planets, and it's kind of ripping through Roshar because they're not used to it, which is so good. But I suppose I'll do a timestamp. We can do them on Spotify and on YouTube. I don't know if they worked on Apple. Did they work?
I have no idea.
Okay, I don't think they do. But if you really care, I'm going to actually mention who these people are. And they're from other Sanderson books, from other Cosmere worlds. So if you don't want to know, look for the timestamp. But otherwise, join along. I don't think it's really a big spoiler. It doesn't impact me. I haven't even read all these books, and I'm chill about it. But your personal choice. So there's only one that I did know for sure, and they're from Mistborn Era 1. I'm just pulling up exactly who these people are. Did you have any idea, Jimmy, at all?
No, but I mean, it's pretty obvious that they're significant and from the Cosmere, because wonder how he earned that scar across his scalp. And they're using fake names. Val wasn't his real name. Ishikk was sure they used fake names. That is why he used his own names for them. If they were going to give him fake names, he'd give them fake names back, which is very
I love how petty that is. It's just like, nope, not going to happen. Yeah, so that one, sorry, I introduced this too early. Well, I've got too many notes. I'm looking through all the red string and all the papers glued to the walls. Where have I placed this?
There's a lot of stacks of paper around the office. It's totally acceptable.
I've been lost in Roshar, so to speak. Okay, so these are 3 Worldhoppers. They work for the 17th Shard, not the real world equivalent that we know about, the 17th Shard of the Cosmere. And they're a group who's like trying to sort of watch the great, they feel like, we started with Adonalsium and it broke into 16 pieces. And all these shards have drama now, but I believe the 17th Shard are just trying to keep things chill and make sure nothing gets out of hand. And Hoid is someone who does not keep things chill, and he meddles with everything everywhere and is obviously like changing the timelines, right? So they're after him basically because he's an agent of chaos in their mind. So one person is Galadon, not Kaladin, Galadon or Galadon, I guess. It's got the double L from Cell. The next one is Bound from Taldane. So Cell is like Elantris, Taldane, I believe, is White Sand. And the only person I knew was Demou, like Demous from Scadrial. So I remembered him from Mistborn Era 1. He was like chilling with Kelsier at some point. But I don't know how much you remember Elantris, Jimmy, but like these could be any people to me.
Yeah, I only read the first like 200 pages of Elantris. I'm going to revisit it. I was really hoping to revisit it this year, to be honest with you. But I didn't recall any of these. Even the Mistborn guy, I don't recall.
Yeah, like I barely do. The what I take from this, I'm like, okay, they're all part of this 17th Shard organization. I need to read these other books too, purely for these connections and things like that. But there are little hints, because I was like, how did people figure this out? I suppose 2 of them are described as dark-skinned with different builds, and they have certain things with their language that you can pick up on. I think White Sand has some sort of language thing that they use that shows up in this chapter. I believe that's what people are saying. But one of them calls Blunt says, and you, Temu, like he calls one of them Temu, which I thought kind of sounds like Demu, like as you would read it in Mistborn. So I guess that's like Ishikk's hearing it in a slightly different way. So you could track it that way. But most interestingly to me is like Mistborn Era 1 is 300 years before this. So how is a dude from Mistborn Era 1 showing up, basically looking kind of the same 300 years later?
That's a very good question.
Roshar, right? There's going to be some anti-aging magic. Medicine.
Snake oil.
Yes, someone's selling snake oil. Yeah. So whilst it is cool, none of these people really, it's not like a notable character really. And I mean, I'm talking as someone who hasn't really read White Sand or all of Elantris either. So I feel like we're falling short here as hosts, but it's like, well, they're just 3 people. whatever.
Yeah, and along with the fact that we don't know much about the Purelake, like it feels like this is one of those interludes we really do need to keep in our mind and pay attention to as we continue on. But it's not one that me and you were like, we've solved it. We've had a lot of hunches, some crazy theories as well, but this is not one of those pieces of information that I think lends itself to more speculation.
Yeah, I think I
should say for us.
Yeah, I agree. And if you are more well versed in the cosmere and these characters, please let us know in the comments or contact us at lostinroshar@gmail.com. But otherwise, it was a really entertaining chapter. I think what's most interesting, at least to me, besides the common cold coming and these like little nods to future events in the story, magic fish, I feel like, are a much bigger piece.
Yes.
I also find that, it being a giant lake, that means it's a giant hub in Shadesmar because it's land. And that tells me that this is where a lot of Worldhoppers kind of pop out in the Purelake. It seems like a hub, like a traveling hub. And what's going on with these double gods? Like, how does this play into the real world of Roshar? I feel like there is something there.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And is there a Herald hanging out at the Purelake? Probably not.
Did the Herald lose their laundry? I don't know.
We'll know whenever they all show back up and one of them's missing a shirt.
Yeah, and we're like, it was him in his little canoe. Yeah, well, I'll just add one last thing before we go to the next chapter. I was, again, getting quotes from Brandon. Somebody did ask, Krem and the Purelake on Roshar, do they have any connection to cultivation, as in the shard of cultivation? Sanderson said both existed on the planet before cultivation arrived. They asked again, but are both influenced by her now? And he said, yes, she influences both. So I don't know if she's like dropping some magic juice in the Purelake for the fish. I don't know, but I thought it was a little interesting tidbit.
Very, very cool. Well, we're moving on now to the second interlude, which is Nan Balat, and this is Shallan's brother, which we can figure out as we read through this. It's extremely short. It's like 4 pages long, really. But there is some stuff in here, and one of the things that immediately jumped off the page to me that I had forgotten about is that Nan Balat liked killing things, not people. Never people, but animals, those he could kill, particularly the little ones. He wasn't sure why it made him feel better. It simply did. He sat on the porch of his mansion, pulling the legs off a small crab, one at a time. There was a satisfying rip to each one. He pulled on it lightly at first, and then the animal grew stiff. Then he pulled hard, and it started to squirm. The ligament resisted, then started ripping, followed by a quick pop. Oof. So, here's the thing.
Michael Kramer, step aside. That's all I'm saying.
Listen, Christian, you can't draw up a more hateable person that is sitting in front of their mansion and their privilege.
Oh, my God.
Ripping the limbs of a small animal. And that is why I don't know if that's actually what's going on here. Like, I do believe he's doing these things. It is very interesting that multiple times in this very short interlude, we hear that Nan Balat feels a relief of pain while he's distributing out punishment to another living thing. There is something going on here. He sighed in satisfaction, ripping a leg free, soothed him, made the aches in his body retreat. He tossed a leg over his shoulder and moved on to the next one. He didn't like to talk about his habit. He didn't even speak it to Aelita. It was something that he did. You had to keep your sanity somehow. There is a connection between what he is doing to these animals and the reason why he is feeling relief, in my opinion. I don't know what it is. I don't know what craziness this is, but I think that it is a legitimate physical relief that he's feeling from his crippled status.
Man, this is the thing with Stormlight, right? We're always like, is this magic or just a character thing?
Magic, man.
You reckon?
Yeah, dude. I think, it's far too on the nose, being rich, killing little animals, and then it being in this interlude. Like, I mean, of course, it does further the narrative that Shallan has a really messed up family and adds some more context to it. But we know that Shallan's very messed up and has a lot of things going on with her that is not entirely in her control and external forces. And their mother being a herald, like, why would that not also affect other people, other people in the family? So I feel like Nan Balat is sold to us as like a Joffrey Baratheon. But I think that there is a magical reasoning behind what he is doing.
I like what you're getting at. I'm just thinking about this as you're saying.
I don't have the answers to what it is, but no. I think this perked up my ears. And there's a lot of stuff in this this little interlude that's only a couple pages long. We hear a lot about vines, which the one thing I can't remember very well. I mean, there's many things I don't remember well, but in this interlude is that Lif's spren is like a vine, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there seems to be vines all over this interlude. And I'm thinking that these spren are here and they're interacting.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, because firstly, I'm going to go back to your whole like magic theory with Balat, right? I think it would be interesting what you're getting at, because we've only seen sort of like at least in my when I think of Stormlight, I think of how cool the magic is and how positive it is. But we've never seen like the twisted use of magic in Stormlight, or like the dark side.
Yeah.
And what if like he can get some sort of benefit by doing this? I think that would be like a cool
thing. He's definitely getting benefit.
And with my tinfoil theory that Shallan's mum's a herald and they've all inherited kind of weird things, what if he's inherited some weird thing?
That's what I'm at. Yeah, that's what I'm on. Yeah, I 100% think so.
Yeah, like what if they're all messed up in a... sorry, I say it so bluntly, but like, yeah, what if they've all got some weird quirk? Some like, if a herald has a kid, they get like the magic gets flipped on its head and they have all these weird little glitches.
Yeah,
I like this.
Yeah, and I want to just put an apology out there to all the herald spawns that exist in our world. You know, if you're a child of a herald and you've been affected by these things, you know, we I'm just kidding.
Mate, you can't clean it up. I've just said you're all messed up.
You've all
got issues.
Yeah, you really boggled this one, heralds. So
yeah, look, the spren thing I'm not as convinced with, because I feel like he's only appearing like a vine and everything because he's bonded to a person. I think these vines are just more like, I'm going to think it's a bit more simple, and it's just like him describing Roshar and the interesting, because he goes a lot into how the grass is retreating. I think he's still getting you used to like, okay, everything's moving here. The plants are alive and all that. Not to say that there's not a magical element there. I just don't know if it's like a spren.
That's fair. Yeah, I could be talked off the ledge on that. I'm way more willing to concede ground on that piece of it, because I wasn't really sold on that, than I am the fact that I don't think Nan Balat is just some sociopath by nature. Like I think
I like what you're getting at, dude. I've never heard that take before either, which is rare in a Stormlight discussion. Sometimes I feel like all the theories are taken.
I just think it's very obvious. You know, to me, it's too obvious to hate this. I mean, porch of his mansion pulling legs off a small animal. Like, come on, dude. Like, I just don't think Brandon is one to just throw that in there and be like, look, hate him. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but
we'll watch him. We'll keep an eye on that.
Keep our peepers peeled.
Yeah, we'll be the spread on the wall. What I liked. Again, I've been desperately waiting for sounds and tones and rhythms, right? Because we know that those are the building blocks of Roshar since Rhythm of War. Mm-hmm. And I thought this was super intentional. It says, Balat walked to the edge of the porch. Some wild songlings began to sing in the distance, scraping their rigid shells. They each played a different beat and notes, though they couldn't really be called melodies. Melodies were things of humans, not animals, but each one was a song, and at times they seemed to sing back and forth to one another. I was like... This is 100% like connecting to the Parshendi and their rhythms and their patterns of speaking and the pure tones of Roshar. Yeah, like just him hinting at the pulling the curtain back a little, and it blows my. I'm convinced of that, and it blows my mind how much I'm seeing of it so far in the Way of Kings. But yeah, it literally says the fist-sized creature was shaped like a peak disc with forearms that reached out from the sides and scraped rhythms along the top. Like these are like little crabs who are literally like popping off beats on the top of their head. Like what is that? That is 100% related to the Parshendi and their rhythms and all of that. I'm convinced.
Yeah, and then you have Scrack, which is the Axe Hound, which is really, really interesting. Is tearing it apart. She was sleek and lean, 6 legs extending before her as she sat on her haunches. Axehounds didn't have shells or skin. Instead, their body was covered in some fusion of the two. Smooth to the touch and more pliable than true carapace. I always say that wrong. But harder than the skin and made of interlocking sections. The Axehound's angular face seemed curious. Her deep black eyes regarding Balat. She trumped softly. It's interesting that it was also tearing apart something, as Balat was tearing apart something.
I mean, yeah, I'm more convinced of like the Rosharian dog more or less doing it. But yeah, when you have your theory, and like as I have your theory in my mind, it's like recontextualizing this whole thing. All I remember was like there's some line about ear holes, and I was like, that's creepy.
Yeah, the ear hole line is one, and I was like, I can't even imagine this thing.
I don't like ear holes. I'm not a fan of that line. Yeah, I like what you said. I kind of want to read it again now that you say that, because I'm totally tripping with this whole, because especially after the Purelake chapter where they mentioned this fish that took away aches and pains, and then we go straight into Nan Balat doing that. It's kind of like it even feels more telegraphed to the reader to pay attention to that.
I agree. And then we get something really interesting, which plays into another theory that I have. Yeah. He's sitting there talking about how he couldn't have been the one to go to Yasna and chase her. La da 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 da. He said, the plan probably won't even work, he said, taking off the last of the legs. Odd looking at a creature like this when it had no legs. The crab was still alive, yet how could you know it? Without legs to wiggle, the creature seemed as dead as a stone. And there's a paragraph of this I'm also going to continue on, but just here, he's looking at this saying, this thing is crippled. How could it feel alive? And I think Nan Balat is thinking that about himself in some ways. But the interesting line here is the creature seemed as dead as a stone.
Szeth shows up.
And I've also been thinking about the fact that in the cosmere, we know that sometimes like life can be stored in a stone. And I've talked about the Gavilar statue and the bringing back Gavilar and all of this stuff. Little Warbreaker tie in here. So I thought that was a little interesting line. Like, it's very specific. Dead as a stone.
You're peaking on this episode, mate. I'm loving the Jimmy theories.
I'm glad. I mean, these are just little tidbits. I don't have the full picture yet, but they're things I'm picking up on.
And I'm sure someone's listening right now, and part of my brain says this too. And it's like, maybe he just is a psycho who gets relief from this, and this is all metaphorical and well written. But maybe there's this theory, and maybe we can run with that. And maybe like, I wish I could get a visual. Like the way I'm picturing it is like, yeah, you wouldn't know, right? It's got no limbs. It's just sitting there. Mm-hmm. It's so sick. Like the way it's written is so,
Do you want to know who this, in my opinion, is? That Sanderson's giving a nod to in fantasy?
Oh yeah, who?
Sandor Glokta.
You reckon?
Or I said Sandor. I'm thinking Sandor Clegane.
Sandan
Glokta. Glokta from First Law. And I say this with a lot of confidence because if you think about it, Nan Balat talks about how he hates climbing stairs or going down them in this chapter. And then also is kind of torturing, as we know Glokta does in First Law. And it just so happens that Sanderson and Joe Abercrombie are friends, and Sanderson loves Joe Abercrombie.
If this is a Glokta nod, it's like... This chapter just went so far up in my estimation, just because like we're both massive fans, right?
I think it's a slight nod to Glokta.
That would be cool.
I do, and they're big fans of each other, so I could see it. I don't think Sanderson would hesitate to give a little nod. He does it in a lot of his works. Mm-hmm. To me, and I might be wrong, but I think that this is a slight nod to Glokta.
I love that. I'm going to read this next paragraph, which I thought was not necessarily no tinfoil here. I just highlighted it. They were a broken family. Years of suffering, their father's brutal temper had driven Asha Jushu to vice and Tet Wickham to despair. Only Balat had escaped unscathed. Balat and Shallan. She'd been left alone, never touched. At times, Balat had hated her for that, but how could you truly hate someone like Shallan? Shy, quiet, delicate. Firstly, the Asher, Jushu, and the Tet Wickham, these are all just like, what's the word? Pronouns isn't the right word, is it? But whatever. It's the thing you say before like a certain sibling. So that he's just talking about his siblings.
Oh, okay.
So Nan in this context, like he's the oldest brother. So the oldest brother gets Nan. His name's just Balat. So we know that one of the siblings is like, you know, gambling and drinking. We'd learn that later. And well, the other one's like a nervous wreck. So it's interesting, a couple things. Firstly, that Balat thinks he's unscathed as he's like pulling the legs off a crab. He's like, yeah, I'm fine. But man, everyone else is so messed up. I'm like, mate, what planet are you on? And just this, everyone kind of has a soft spot for Shallan, seemingly, except for Yasna, to be honest. Yeah. Everyone's kind of like taken away by Shallan.
Yeah, I don't think Yasna cares too much.
No, the charms, she's immune to her charms. But we learned that her older brother died in this chapter for the first time too. If only Halaran had survived, their eldest brother, then known as Nan Halaran, as he'd been the first son. It's interesting. Did we know that before this? Because I try to remember, what do we know at this point in the story? It's hard to separate what we know.
I don't think we knew it at this point.
Yeah.
But my memory is not the best, so I'm slightly nervous that I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Look, the highlight for me was your theory that there's something magical going on here. I'm in two minds because sometimes I'm like, you know, there's a lot of this mental health focus in Stormlight, and there's a lot of magic, hard magic in Stormlight, and you don't want every sort of mentally messed up person to have some magical reason behind it. You know, would that take away from it for you if you were right?
I'm going to say no, and the only reason is because I think it's easier to just say, hey, this is a sociopathic character and look how messed up he is, and hate him. He's in his mansion killing, you know what I mean? Like, so for me personally, I think I'd be okay with in this aspect, but we have talked about it before where sometimes I like things to be a little bit more ambiguous and nebulous, and that's not Sanderson's style most of the time. So I kind of have different expectations when I read his books, but this is one of the times where I wouldn't mind.
Yeah, you've definitely turned me around on it. I kind of want it to be true now because it fits my whole like her mom's a herald. They're all messed up. Look at him pulling those crab legs.
Propaganda, one theory at a time.
Yeah, man. Like heralds in the Purelake, heralds in the Davars household, and maybe there's a herald in the next chapter, mate. What do you reckon?
I hope so.
Let's have a look. The glory of ignorance.
The glory of ignorance. And we're back with old Truthless himself, just putzing around over here with TWOK and lobbing his Oathstone around, wishing he was dead, but he can't, you know, I mean, my God, I thought Kaladin was a bummer.
Oh, he's so over him.
They're buddies, man.
You can't win with Jimmy.
It's going to be miserable. It's going to be full of My Chemical Romance songs.
Dude, you hate the happy characters. You hate Lopen. You hate the depressed characters. Who do you like, mate?
Maybe I don't like anybody at this point.
Maybe you just don't like being lost in Roshar.
Listen, I like Yasna and I like Shallan.
Hey, you just, I mean, if you didn't like Yasna, I actually might need to find someone else to do the podcast with. So you've passed that test. But yeah, look, Szeth definitely would listen to My Chemical Romance if that was an option.
Oh, dude,
I'd say so.
Sure.
With Nightblood, I mean, it would look pretty sick at a MCR concert.
Listen,
with Nightblood.
I'd get down with some MCR. I'm not opposed.
Hell yeah! Oh no, we're not knocking it, man.
Yeah.
I could bump that any day.
Don't get it twisted.
Yeah. So I just love the contrast. Like last time we saw him, he was this crazy assassin flying through, the coolest dude ever. But now he's like Truthless of Shinovar, sat on a wooden tavern floor, will have his beer slowly soaking through his brown trousers. Like he's fallen far, mate. He's been through some stuff.
He's going through the farm arc, just like in Vinland Saga.
Yeah, he's being humbled right now. Need to make something grow. Yeah. um, Dude, this chapter, I feel like it's kind of I feel bad saying it's funny, but it's kind of very like easy to have a laugh at, because my god, what a miserable situation Szeth has found himself in. Like,
it really is. It really is
terrible. And whoever's got it, this guy who's owning him now is just an absolute bastard about it. But it's so realistic. Like, I love the contrast. Like, depending on who has this Oathstone, it's a whole different life for Szeth, obviously. That's not a great revelation, but it's fun to see it, right? It's fun to see how different his life can pan out.
Yeah, and I think it's a pretty good commentary on agency and power structure and everything else. I mean, unfortunately, this is somewhat of a reality for many people. And that can be a really terrible thing. Really, really terrible.
And when I say it's humorous, it's just I know, the dark humor of like
the gallows humor.
Visible it is, just to clarify. Also, is you're just first look into like the mechanics of Szeth. Like, how does life work for him? And I don't know, I just found it so undignified how we get this flashback to him outside of like the palace in a loincloth, like just holding a stone, waiting for someone to pick him up because the Parshendi threw out the stone. I was just like, this poor guy.
It's like him on the side of the road with the thumb up, right? Well, I was even saying it's fascinating from a narrative perspective because Szeth, we know that he is an assassin and he's been hired and all these things. And then you just throw in the fact that now anyone can kind of use this guy as a weapon, which is crazy. But you know, he's so dedicated to it. I mean, it must be magic, right?
I'm actually going to say no. I don't think it's magical with Szeth. I think his mind is literally like so convinced of it. And being in his head, it doesn't feel like there's some magical hint or a hidden capitalized letter here. I feel like he's legitimately just like, I've got to do this. He's like so compelled by it. There's some like childhood trauma thing going on here, like some deep stuff that he's like, I mean, this is just what I've got to do.
Yeah, I would say that Shinovar is probably lending itself to a lot of childhood trauma, maybe.
Yeah, I feel like if you don't have childhood trauma, you're not going to make it into the series. As a POV character.
Sounds like every One Piece backstory.
Yeah, I know. Everyone died. That's why I am the way I am.
Yes.
It was cool being in Bavland, this area. We don't think we're really ever there, at least that I can recall. So even if we have been there again, it hasn't been super notable in my mind. And just hearing their little sayings like Dust Mother, that kind of stood up for me with our whole theory of dust and the sun going out and stuff like that.
Ooh, I like that quite a bit.
Yeah.
More propaganda from Lost and Roshar.
Yeah, well, the Dust Mother isn't unmade. So I'm like, it's curious that they're like, that's become like a saying in this area, that the Dust Mother is just like that spoken about. Mate, you're not saying some sort of exclamation that's slightly religious and getting past me. I'm looking that up straight away. I'm looking it up straight away. Yeah. So this is the quote on the Copper Mine, that their official name is Chemerish. The Dust Mother has some of the most varied lore surrounding her. The wealth of it makes sorting lies from truths extremely difficult. I do believe she is not the Night Watcher, contrary to what some stories claim. That's from Hessi's Mythica, the in-world book about the Unmade. So like a evil spren of Odium. I don't know. It's cool that that's a saying. Like most areas in Roshar are like, oh, Kelek, Ash's Eyes, oh, Talon's whatever. But these guys are talking about Unmade. Interesting.
Yeah, and maybe the interludes are peeks into the Unmade, because we know that there are Unmade, and they kind of start to swing around in Rhythm of War and whatnot. But we know they're going to be a much bigger deal in the future, right?
Yeah. I mean, they already have become a bigger deal in the series as we see. I just don't know if we'll get to around all 10. You know, I'm not sure. It's like you set up so much. How much are you going to use? Are you like, do you have to use all of it as an author? You know,
I don't think you have to. No, I really don't. And those are things that, you know, even slight hints at what the other ones may be doing or where they are or why they're not there could be interesting for us to talk about for many decades beyond the series end even. So I think it's okay to leave that.
Yeah, I agree. You can't cover everything, but in this chapter, I guess we finally just see like how much Szeth is compelled to do the things he has to do. Like he's literally self-harming in front of these people, deadpan. Yeah. No, doesn't care. I mean, he cares, but it's like he's just got to do it. So what are you going to do about it? But I kind of love that he's thinking like, man, I'm basically a superhero and they don't know it. You know,
it's like the party meme where the guy's in the corner with the hat on, everyone's dancing. He's like, they have no idea how cool I am.
That's what I imagined as you said, like at your work meeting, people are talking about Mistborn and stuff, and you're like, I host a podcast about
wow, that is definitely true. Wow, that is spot on reference.
Yeah. You're just
exactly
like, do I
how
say
it
something? Was. Yeah. They have no idea. They have no idea. I talk about safe hands every Sunday.
I have my safe hand exposed.
Yeah. Our sense of humor just absolutely dreadful. But look, I liked the whole compilation of Szeth, like, oh, this guy owned me, but they just can't keep me because I'm just too cool. You know,
I'm not like other girls.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just too much of a big-eyed light eyes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's just a traveler, you know. If anything, he's on the ultimate road trip. He's
the vagabond of Roshar.
Yeah, he is. He really is. I don't think this had many like sort of tinfoil theories from me. Did anything stand out to you?
No, this chapter was I didn't even have any notes for it actually. I thought it was extremely straightforward. Maybe we're missing something big. I hope we are. But you know, you meet TWOK and you see Szeth, you see the Oathstone. You know that it's about to get really bad for him by the end, and that's kind of what I gathered from it.
Yeah, for me it was like, hey, this guy's still important from the prologue. This is how his life works, and off he goes onto his next adventure.
Yeah, we're not done with him yet. You know, it's signifying to the reader.
Yeah, and I feel like this is generally how the interludes go. It's usually like, hey, here's something that's like totally out of left field, i.e. the Purelake. You'll be confused about this and talking about this for years. Then there's like side character who we like, okay, they're related to someone, cool. And then like Szeth or like Risen or like, you know, a character that can only be followed through the interludes.
Yeah.
My favorite are the crazy ones that are like, where the heck are we?
Definitely. I mean, those are the ones that are the most inspiring for us to just come up with the whack job theories.
Yeah. I mean, what I think will probably be like we can make something of when book 5 comes out. We actually get a good description of the Oathstone. Simple piece of rock with a few quartz crystals set into it with a rusty vein of iron on one side. I'm sure that will be like so telling at one point. Like, oh, it has iron. That means Szeth's dad was from this planet, you know, one day.
Oh, one day God.
Yeah. That feels relevant. Yeah, I hope so. But for right now, Lost in Roshar's got nothing to say, mate.
Yeah.
Nothing to say. Just another day with Szeth.
Yeah, and I mean, the 3 interludes were great. Like you kind of said, they each did a little bit of something different, served a different purpose, and it catapults us off into part 2.
Oh, hell yeah, man. We need this cast to expand.
We do.
I love Kaladin Shallan, but dude, I've been missing our boys.
Yeah, I'm excited to read Adolin again because I remember being really big on Adolin at the beginning in like the first 2 books and then slowly going into apathy with him, even with his bigger moment in book 4. So I'm going to try to read it with a little bit more goodwill, I think, this time and know what to expect from Adolin. And the fact that he is not, you know, the stupendous one. He is not the big, brave Radiant, but he is the normal person. And how do you feel about that when everyone around you is you know, majestical. It'll be interesting to read his POV again. And I'm excited to see the introduction of his character in the next part.
Yeah, when I think of Adolin, I think, oh, he's the protagonist of like your standard fantasy, but he's like too low level for this world. It's like how it's like how they say Zoro is like the typical shonen main character, but he's not. He's Luffy's second mate. And Adolin's kind of like that to Kaladin. Kaladin, he's always just like, but Kaladin's so much cooler. What am I gonna do about it? But I mean, I love me some Adolin, but dude, give me some Dalinar. Yeah, Dalinar's about to take down a freaking chasm fiend. Like, oh, I'm pumped for those chapters next
Zaddy
week.
Himself. Let's go.
Zaddy himself, and Sadius, that bloody
Zadius.
Zadius with these.
That's the new nickname. Daddy Dalinar and Zadius. We're gonna get weird.
Zaddy and Daddy.
Yeah, I love
next week.
I love it.
As always, guys, thank you for accompanying us on this episode of Lost in Roshar. Remember, the most important chapter a man can read is the next one. We'll see you next week to finally get into part 2 with chapters 12 and 13.
And if you enjoyed this episode of the podcast, be sure to leave us a review on whichever platform you listen on. And if you have feedback, questions, or theories, span read us at lostinroshar@gmail.com. We'll see you next time on Lost in Roshar, and please remember to keep that safe hand covered.